Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again, never, and I mean never mess around with an Ouija board, unless you're ready to unleash the evil that you may come in contact with. Today, we'll be looking at some terrifying signals sent from Ouija boards. Let's get right on into it. But speaking of the paranormal, I have been loving the documentary show Psychic Investigators, which I watch on Magellan TV. Magellan TV is a membership streaming service filled with top quality and entertaining documentaries. They have over 3,000 titles to choose from, and they add new programs on a weekly basis. So there's always something for you to watch. It's a site that I go to watch all of my true crime documentaries, like the one that I just mentioned, Psychic Investigators. This show is about real-life crimes solved by detectives and psychics, like the case of Penny Sarah. Penny Sarah's death remained a mystery for 2 years until they enlisted the help of a psychic named Mary Pasquarella Downey. Now, I don't want to give too much away, but a case that people thought would never be solved got solved by a psychic. If this sounds interesting to you, then you need to check out Magellan TV and this show. And what's great is that the shows are available in 4K without any additional fees and no ads or commercials. You can even stream it on a number of devices or even cast it from your phone to your TV to watch it on the big screen. If you're interested, go ahead and check the link in the description box for a 1-month free trial with Magellan TV and unlock Magellan's entire collection of documentaries. Now, let's get on with the video. Starting off this countdown, we have Eliza. One day, a girl and her friends decided to fool around with an Ouija board. To make it 10 times worse, they decided that the perfect location to use it in would be the cemetery. So they went to the cemetery, set up the board in a clearing, and started asking it questions. At first, nothing really happened. Then all of a sudden, the planchette moved by itself and spelled out the name Eliza. They kept asking the board questions and found out that she was 54 when she passed away. Now, the girls were thinking that one of their friends was just moving the planchette, so they weren't scared. That was until they packed up to leave. As they were leaving the cemetery, they stumbled upon a tombstone. It read, Eliza Taylor, 1862 to 1916. So they were in contact with a real spirit this whole time. And the last message that she sent to them was, don't go. She wanted them to all stay with her. In our 9th spot, we have George. When Reddit user Treeman was little, his mom invited him to play an Ouija board with her. Not judging, but I am. Why? Why would you invite your kid to play? It's not a game. Anyways, he joined in and started spelling out joke words like poop and fart. He found it so funny. That was until her mom asked the board about her missing friend. He had been missing for a month or so and no one knew where he was. At first, the board spelt out George, the name of the friend who went missing. The next thing it spelt out was lake. About 2 weeks later, they found George's body. He had been hit by a car while on a bridge and his body fell into the lake below. The Ouija board literally solved this man's disappearance. In our 8th spot today, we have the creepy doll. So a couple of years ago, the narrator, his cousins, dad, and best friend were all using an Ouija board in their basement. Now, prior to using the board, they decided to move this creepy porcelain doll out from the basement and place it into another room. Good idea, dolls creep me out. Plus, we've seen Annabelle, we know that demons can inhabit dolls. Anyways, they began using the board, and at first, it wasn't working. That was until the planchette started moving randomly to random numbers. But these weren't any numbers. They were one of the guy's social security numbers. To make sure it wasn't a prank, they asked the board to show itself or to prove that it was really there with them. That's when it spelled out the word doll. They all immediately rushed into the other room where they had placed that porcelain doll. And as soon as they opened the door, they saw the doll standing right up in front of the door, staring right at them. If I was them, I would just never sleep again. That is horrifying. Moving on to number 7, we have Under the Car. This story was submitted by Reddit user No Springs. According to them, when they were 12 or 13, they decided to fool around with an Ouija board with their friends and his sister one night. They weren't taking it seriously at first. They all took turns moving the planchette to try and spook each other. That was until the board spelled out, I can see you through the window. And then it said, I can see you through his eyes. They kept asking it questions and it spelled out, I'm under the car. So they actually went outside and looked under their car. As soon as they did, a huge black cat leaped out and hissed at them. They all ran back inside the house, and as soon as they did, the power failed. That's the last time they ever played with the Ouija board. Serves them right. In our 6th spot today, we have the death. This story was submitted by Turtle Shell Magic on Reddit. So a couple of years ago, they were playing with an Ouija board with 2 of their friends. That's when they got in contact with a spirit. They asked it how it died, which, first off, you're not supposed to do that, but they did it anyway. It spelt out the word murder. They then asked it how it was murdered, and it said, "Not I." That's when the room started to get heavy. The energy shifted completely, and the friends knew that something was wrong. Then, out of nowhere, the planchette flew from out underneath their hands, and it flew across the room. They immediately stopped playing. Then a week later, one of the friends' moms died unexpectedly. Another one of the friends' mom was hospitalized, and the narrator's mom had an emergency hysterectomy. They believe that whoever they summoned that night came after their moms and murdered the one mother. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Roger. Back in the 90s, Reddit user Ouija1993 had some girls in his 9th grade class say that they've been playing with an Ouija board. They told him that they've been in contact with a spirit named Roger. So he decided to join them after school one time to see if they were being serious or if it was cap. At first, he wasn't buying it and thought the girls were just moving the planchette by themselves. So he decided to ask the board a question that only he should have known the answer to. He had just gotten his grade back from a science test, so he asked the board what his mark was, and the board got it right. So he believed that it was real, and they continued on playing with the board. That was until the board kept calling one of the girls the B word, like it really hated her, but it seemed to have a liking towards him. Eventually, they learned that Roger had been stabbed to death. After that night, the guy decided to go home and look for any murders in the area involving a man named Roger. And sure enough, he found the spirit that they had been talking to. His name was Roger Stevenson, a 35-year-old man who was stabbed to death during a robbery gone wrong. His attacker's name was Sam. Remember that girl that Roger didn't like and kept calling a Well, her name was Sam. Coming in at number 4, we have the entity. Like I said, you don't want to play with Ouija boards. You run the risk of unleashing some evil entity or demon, which is exactly what happened to this next user. So they were using the board all by themselves, and they didn't say goodbye to it properly. After that, they kept feeling as if something was watching them. Then weird things started happening. Doors would open and close on their own. They would hear footsteps in the house. Sometimes they would even wake up in the middle of the night to their covers being pulled off of them. Not only that, but the Ouija board would sometimes disappear only to reappear somewhere else days later. Eventually, it got so bad that she needed to get her house blessed. She had her hair pulled, her body scratched, and she was even choked. One time, she even saw the entity appear in the corner of her room. It presented itself as a dark mass. Needless to say, this is a great example as to why you don't mess with the paranormal. Coming in at number 3, we have the instructions. In 1983, Bunny Dixon, her boyfriend Anthony Hall, and another couple were fooling around with the Ouija board when it gave them a very specific set of instructions. It told them to flee their home and join a carnival in Virginia. It also told them to rob and murder a motorist in order to get enough money to follow through with this plan. So they did what the board asked them to. They killed a motorist and robbed him and fled. But eventually, the couples turned on each other and were all arrested. They tried to blame the board for their actions, but that did them no good, and they were all convicted of murder. Moving on to number 2, we have the sacrifice. In 1995 in London, 2 young boys, Michael McCallum and Michael Eridge, decided to play with an Ouija board. While playing with the board, it spelled out kill. McCallum took this as a sign to kill the other Michael. He thought that he was in contact with Satan and that he was making a sacrifice for him. In the end, he was charged with manslaughter and served his time inside of a mental institution. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Woodchipper. One day, this narrator was talking to her great aunt and got on the topic of marriage. She then asked her why she was never married. And apparently when she was 16, she did have a pretty serious boyfriend. One night she was using a Ouija board and asked it if he would be the man she would marry. The board responded with no. She then asked it if they would break up. It also said no. So she asked if one of them was going to die. It responded with yes. She asked it if it was her or her boyfriend, and it said goodbye. A week later, the boyfriend was in a woodchipper accident at the mill where he worked and he passed away. The Ouija board had predicted this. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. If you have any creepy Ouija board experiences or stories, let me know in the comments below. I would love to read them and maybe feature them on part 2 of this list. And now, speaking of comments, let's move on to our comment shout out portion. I'll be shouting out comments from the video, top 10 bizarre glitches in the Matrix you weren't meant to see. Juice829 commented, okay, am I the only one who had to stop and do a double take? Nice choice of shirts. Lower background. Looks like your arms have been severed and your hands floating in the air. Well done. Yeah, I was wearing a tank top and it was cold, so I put a shawl on over top. It was a bad mistake because I was in an all black outfit and this couch is all black, so. Anne-Marie Dinsmore commented, I love these videos. Great way to start and end my day. Shout out to Lindsay. Love to get a hello from you, Anne-Marie. Hi, Anne-Marie. How are you doing? Thank you so much for the sweet comment. Hope you're doing well. And King Oliver commented, I thought Lindsay had her hands behind her back until I looked closely to realize she has on a black jacket. Like I said, never wearing that ever again. It's time to burn it, okay? It was a bad mistake. Alright guys, that's all the comments I'm shouting out for today's video. Make sure to comment something down below for a chance to be featured in my next comment shout out. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see ya. Bye.